Hello and welcome to Around the Scene, presented to you by Playing with Rockets. I'm one of your hosts, PW Ryan, and joining me today is the beauty man himself, Sammael. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Yeah, really happy to be here and ready to talk some Rocket League. I don't get a chance to do this kind of casual Rocket League conversation often, so, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully I don't drop too many F-bombs,
Hey, if you do, it's okay. We've let a couple go ourselves. But it's just a casual conversation. That's all we're doing here. But if you didn't know, this is episode 26 of Around the Scene. We're here to give you your fix on all things Rocket League every single week. If you like this, be sure to give us a follow, sub, like, all that good stuff. We'd greatly appreciate it. You can do that here on Twitch, over on YouTube, all the various podcast platforms that you listen to us. It'd be awesome if we had you. Also consider supporting us by kicking a buck over on patreon.com/playingwithrockets. Speaking of which, we're going to give a quick shout out to our Patreon sponsors for the month of October. That is going to be Kelvin Winter, Father of Five, Jonesy, and Neo. Thank you guys so much. We greatly appreciate your support. So, Sammael, you ready to just jump right into this thing?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, we have a massive 4 items today for you guys. The first bit of news is going to be Rocket League has officially been released in China. This news coming from Andrew Hayward over on Rocketeers.gg. The Chinese version of Rocket League was developed in cooperation with gaming giant Tencent, with a free-to-play model chosen to reach a wider array of players in the country. The game received approval in July from the State Administration of Press Publication, Radio, Film, and Television of the People's Republic of China. That's a very long acronym. I'm not going to read it. To monetize in-game content.
I kind of want to just say that. You know what I mean? I almost want to. That beats the SARP acronym. You know what I mean? I think that's actually what they were going for there. They were just looking to
RFTTPR.
China already outdoing us. Can you believe it?
I mean, they're already
starting with the acronyms.
The partnership to create a Chinese version of Rocket League was first announced in April 2017. Since then, Epic Games has acquired Psyonix, and Tencent owns a 40% stake in Epic Games, so it's all in the family now. What do you make of this, man? Because we've been hearing about this for a good while, so it feels weird that it's just now finally being released. To be honest, I kind of thought it was already released.
Well, especially with, I think that map got leaked, right? That
yeah, like a while back.
Map. Oh my God, that Chinese version that none of us can play on yet. They did say we're gonna get a chance to play on that at some point, so that'll be
probably
sweet.
Gonna do it like Chinese New Year event or something with
that. Yeah, definitely. That is a beautiful thing. I think that maybe sneak it out kind of broke the news a little bit early for them. I don't think they were really necessarily expecting that. People digging through the game files and stuff. But hey, I'm appreciative of it. I don't know how they're doing it, but I'm glad they are. But no, man, I mean, honestly, this is nuts. I mean, it's the next step for Rocket League to capture a whole nother part of the world. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people, a lot of potential players out there. I mean, when you add that sort of potential player base in the mix, potential viewers as well, I mean, this can only mean good things.
No, I'm super excited for it. And I mean, one of the questions in the article was how far behind is RLCS representation in this too? And the fact that there's already 2 organizations that have Rocket League teams and are invested in the game already, like, that's just a good sign. More are going to be jumping in on it. Like,
they must have been finding a way to play somehow then. They got some teams already. They were figuring it out.
The Asian Pro League is what they've all been participating in right now. And that consists of teams in like Japan, China, India, I think. It's sort of their version of RLCS, but it's not like...
Gotcha.
Like, most likely, whenever they do develop RLCS over there, it's probably going to be like Rocket Street, how Rocket Street took over for South America. They'll probably be the ones who take over for Asia. I'm assuming. This is just based on like what I know of the region. But I assume that's the natural direction it's probably going to go. But, I mean, it's... The thing I'm curious about, though, is like when we do get RLCS representation from this region, how many teams are they going to get? Because it is such a huge swath of people that it's like, I feel like giving them 2 spots is just not right in comparison to South America and OCE. Not to say that they don't deserve it, but just population-wise, it makes more sense to give them more.
Well, honestly, considering what we're looking at here, the potential for that many people getting in on it, I wouldn't be surprised if they have their own thing for a while, where they have some pretty major tournaments on their side, especially so they can see who some of the players, some of the teams are that are going to be the ones that challenge. They want to make sure that they have players that are available and ready to challenge these teams that we've got already. You know, they've got a little bit of catching up to do, which is
just a little bit.
it's no easy task, but I know they've got a lot of that. They can just watch, right? They've got all that history of all the games and all the different ways that people play. They can see that at any time. I'm sure they've been watching that, so they're going to catch up a lot quicker than I think people realize they are. But either way, I wouldn't be surprised if we see tournaments over on that side first, making sure that we have some established teams before we even talk about, you know, how they're going to get into the RLCS mix. So I don't see that for at least a little bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, my main thing is I'm wondering once they start finding themselves at that higher and higher level, if they're going to be able to reach the heights in Rocket League that region has achieved in many other games. You look at games like Dota 2, like League of Legends. You look at all these other various esports. Overwatch is a good example as well of just they dominate these games typically. A lot of their players do. And I'm curious if you're going to see a North America EU domination continue, like for how long you'll see us continue as the reigning area champs before they start to come in and really make a bid for that #1 position.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a little bit. I would imagine we're not going to see that.
I'm saying, no, it's going to be several seasons down the road.
But you know it's going to happen. That's, I think, the inevitability that we're talking about is that I don't know that anyone knows exactly when, but the fact, I think, is that it will happen. There will definitely be players who catch up. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Not only catch up, but they're going to be pushing, you know, just like anyone else who's come up and maybe started a little bit later. That has not been a detriment necessarily overall to being like, you know, a top player. We've seen people who have started late and still made it. So
plenty of.
It's gonna be nuts. Honestly, it's gonna be absolutely insane. I mean,
I'm just so excited. It's so awesome to see the game continue to spread into different parts of the world and just see more and more people get their hands on this game because in their article and the next one we're going to talk about, they like even the developers, like they're really bullish on like how good the game is and like what it can become. And I think a lot of us even acknowledge it. I mean, you had a tweet blow up about it a while ago on like just the perspective of the game and that it is, like you said, it's deceptively difficult.
No doubt. I mean, it's such a you see it, you're like, easy. I could beat these guys. This seems simple. Yeah. And you step in and you can't even hit the ball, you know. So it's humbling immediately, and if you stick with it, it can be so rewarding getting good at the game too. Yeah. So that's why there's no question, obviously, that it will be a success. I'm so happy to see that it has broken through. You always see I always like looking at the viewership totals for RLCS and the rival series and all that. And then you've got all these massive numbers, and then China's always just zero. Like, it's just this big fat zero, and it's like, you know, the potential of adding that into the mix. I mean, that means that just helps everybody. If you love the game, you got to love this because it just keeps the game going. So
yeah, and I mean, more than anything, I'm excited to see that it's now officially out because I'm curious what the reception's gonna be, because Rocket League is such a different game from every esport. That is, you kind of got to wonder what the general reception's going to be, because it does have pretty good numbers over in the various regions that it's at, but it still isn't anything to where it's like even close to rivaling some of the other games, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see. That's really anyone's guess too, I think. Yeah. They got some pretty dominant games over there that folks are into. You know, obviously some of the main ones that dominate the esports scene in general. So that's kind of Rocket League's struggle, I think, overall is taking that next step too. Mm-hmm. But this certainly can't hurt that. I tell you what, it's got to be. I mean, that's just simply a numbers game right there. That's a lot of potential players.
Jumping into the pool entirely. So we're gonna keep a close eye on that for you guys back home, and we'll let you know what develops from it. But you got anything else you want to add on this one, man?
No, man, just don't. I hope they don't come at us too quick because I'm still trying to get good, man. I don't know. These guys at the top, they should probably be scared a little bit right now.
I've acknowledged that I'm never going to be ahead of any region. I'm still a diamond guy, so I am where I belong.
You're better than like 50% at least. Like that's.
See, it doesn't feel that way when you surround yourself with it though, like we do.
Yeah, no doubt.
Compared to everybody else, I'm just a scrub.
You're watching all those real good games. So I mean, we're both scrubs, Ryan. So we can't don't worry about it too much.
We can find solace in that fact.
Yeah. Probably everyone watching almost is too. So
yeah, I mean 99 times.
That's just a numbers game too.
We're gonna move on to the next bit of news, though. Psyonix carefully considering franchising for Rocket League esports. This news coming from Adam Stern over at the Esports Observer. Quote, while the league is considering a franchise model similar to what's been used for games such as Call of Duty, League of Legends, and Overwatch, Dunham has careful to point out that Psyonix sees both pros and cons to the idea. He would not put a timeline on making a decision. We've been evaluating that for a while, and now whether or not we do is still a question for another time. But it's definitely something we've talked about, said Dunham. It's something the team organizations have been interested in, but there's no outright evidence that says that is the only way to go. Still, there have been calls for franchising to Rocket League to help teams in areas such as revenue sharing. Dunham said Rocket League is still more focused on growing the game itself than making money from it, but franchising is a big question with a lot of implications and potentially new investors and voices added to the mix. So before you want to take on something like that, you want to make sure it is the direction you want to go. End quote. So this is something that, I mean, like it said in the article, we've been talking about for a long time. Just everybody, when we have these conversations amongst ourselves. I've said my perspective on here before, but I'm curious, what's your perspective on franchising in Rocket League? And in general, I guess.
I mean, that's a tough topic, right? There's a lot going on there, and I think there's a lot of sides to consider when you look at something like that. Yeah. I think the biggest thing when I started thinking about it, because I, haven't really thought about it too much, to be honest with you, because the biggest reason I don't know that the game and the scene is ready for that sort of thing just yet. So it's hard to consider when you look at, we've only recently stabilized teams, the current format and some of the changes that have been made to the RLCS format have helped bring stability, brought more organizations in, and that's great. That's exactly where they need to go. I think they've done a great job of doing that, and I don't think we're ready necessarily to be looking at this sort of next step for Rocket League just yet. And also my other really side of it is, even as we would be looking forward to it, is I'm a fan of the game and I'm a fan of competition and all of that. And this really, I don't know, we've seen so many very, very good players come up and be able to just get their way in.
Yeah.
And this sometimes feels like it might be putting up walls around some of that growth of some of the younger players, because I mean, the game itself, we haven't even seen the ceiling be hit, so it's hard to say that we have the stability to be able to have franchising and all of that. But I do think it is an interesting, concept to be looked at, but just maybe not right now.
So is there a time that you think that we are ready for that, though? Because my always main concern about franchising is doing, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but doing away with the open circuit concept. I mean, I saw immediately on Twitter a couple of bubble players immediately saying like, "Oh, all my hours wasted." Like, it makes the barrier to entry so much harder for a lot of these guys, and a lot of them are still grinding away in the hopes that eventually they're gonna be able to reach that level. And so it's like, if you do away with that, I think that you kill the amateur scene in a big way, I would think. And again, like, I think if you do it right now, it's a really bad decision. But I almost question if it's ever something we should do with Rocket League, just because, like you were saying, we had so many people come up through the ranks and just they get into the big leagues and suddenly you're like, whoa, this is a standout player. Like, they're onto something and they're really good. And there are so many players who could be good who are maybe just now picking up the game and, getting their hands on it for the first time and still developing themselves to eventually be able to compete at that level. And I mean, like Karma's a good example. Like she came from an entirely different game and made it into the pro scene. Like that's pretty crazy in and of itself. And who knows how many other players are like that. And I guess my biggest concern with franchising is you really lock out a lot of potential with that side of things. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. I would agree with that 100%. I think that's probably for me the biggest concern as you look at adopting that sort of model, because despite all of the advantages that it has, it obviously the growth for, Epic, potentially the growth for solidifying the esports scene, that's the interesting part of it, because you've got to look at both of those sides. But as the viewer who's maybe watching, or as even the bubble players who are trying to get in, it makes it really, really tough, or it seems like it would. So yeah, even then I would maybe question whether we should. But honestly, I feel like this is one of those things where we should almost cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
And just deal with it then, especially because do we even have enough teams and players right now who anyone would feel comfortable and solid in like saying, yeah, these guys are worth bringing in? I mean, you're going to have some organizations who are going to be real hesitant to step in, because what if they can't get the top players? You need some of that parity across the players as well to make sure that you have competition across not just a few teams at the top, but almost every team. I look at it that way too. If we can ever get to a point where we have, 16 NA teams who are all just like legit, then maybe we talk about that then, And I think we can get there. Rocket League is that good, and I hope that many people play it and want to be that good at it. I think that they do. But that seems far off still. It kind of does.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. I think it's a very far off thing for us. I think it is one of those things you kind of cross the bridge when you get to it, or you start having those conversations after we have had the game out for a bit longer and we've seen the scene itself grow more. Because I mean, you're right, there isn't parity up at the top. You do have these RLCS caliber teams. I mean, taking a look at EU and NA, for example, the top teams, I mean, actually not even them, Sam and OCE, it's kind of the same. Those top teams that make it into the higher level, it's crazy the skill gap between them and an RLRS caliber team. And in OCE and Sam, it's crazy the top level teams compared to even like the 8th or 6th place teams in their league play. Not even the rest of the scene for those regions, just in their league play alone, the skill gap is huge. And so I'm definitely with you. I think until we see more parity up on the top end of things, and it's not so pyramid looking, I think that's when you can maybe consider it. But even then, I really like the idea of an open circuit and the ability to just make it on your own. You don't need an organization backing you. You can grind out the hours, and you too can make it to a pro level player. You know what I'm saying? And it's always funny when you see people like on Reddit saying like, "Hey, I'm new to the game. I have this many hours. Is it still possible to go pro?" And it's like, definitely, it's always possible to go pro if you're willing to put in the time and the energy. Like, it's always possible until franchising comes in.
That would make it a lot harder. And I agree. Anybody still has any chance. And we talked even a lot about the players. I'll even add, for the viewers, consider some of those relegation matches and some of the matches that we saw and how exciting they are. I would argue that only the relegation matches rival the LAN excitement. So when you have the RLCS level and you're at a LAN and you see that sort of gameplay, only those promotion matches, in my mind, really bring that. And that's because of the stakes, and that's because of what it means for those teams and what it means for those players. And it's very interesting because sure, you'd bring in fans of teams and fans of players in the other model, but I think it's really great if you're following some of these players. Take the Peeps, for example. If you've been following the Peeps for a while now, or if you've been following Justin, you'd been watching Justin for a long time, and you knew Justin because you've been watching his stream, and then you see Justin get in, the Peeps at a whole team level get in such a situation like that. We saw 2 teams relegate in NA this past season.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge. It's exciting, and I wouldn't want to lose that as well.
No, I'm definitely with you. The promotion and relegation tournaments, the RLRS play-ins, those are easily like my, aside from Worlds, those are easily my two most favorite things to watch because you're right, the stakes are extremely high, but that's what makes it so entertaining to watch too. To know
No
that
doubt.
like, I mean, you watch the play-ins and you know that it's like, okay, these guys who make it, like, they can be the next pro. They could be an RLCS for the following season, and they could have just made it. Like Afterthought is a great example. Like they are destroying it right now, and like there's a really good chance that we're gonna see them in RLCS next season. And they just made RLRS. Like it's cool to see that stuff, and just you get those storylines of like Sathu and Dapper who fell out of RLCS, whether it was being kicked or they just kind of lost form, and they're making that push back up to the big leagues. And it's just like, it's really cool the type of storylines that you can develop in that regard. And they grinded it out. They didn't give up on the game. They didn't give up on what they put into it, and they made it here. And that's a lot of fun to watch. But then also on the flip side of that, you know that like for some of these teams who fall out of RLCS, like you know how much that hurts because like first a lot of these people, it's like that's their dream is to get up there, and to be in it for maybe 1 or 2 seasons and then fall out. It's like, oh, it hurts so much, but like it's the drama of it really is like it makes it so interesting to watch, and like you want more of it almost.
No doubt. And player acquisitions, don't get me wrong, player acquisitions, movement and things like that, that's exciting as well. I think a lot of people do have a lot of interest in that too. But
The offseason
I don't
shakeup,
personally
man.
yeah. And we'd see a lot of that, in the other way, but I don't personally find that as exciting. I do like the idea of a team coming up and making their way in, and it just feels like that's right for Rocket League right now in general.
Yeah.
It just kind of is how it feels because, I mean, the game is still kind of coming up as well. I don't know. The only other side, just to be devil's advocate before we kind of move on, Ryan, just because we both, I think, are in a lot of agreements.
Yeah.
Is I will say, it would probably help the esports side, the side that brings money in for Epic and ensures that they have bigger, better tournaments.
Yeah.
Stability in that regard. Nobody wants Rocket League to go away on that side. No one wants any lack of support, from the developer. God forbid. I don't see that for a long time
I don't
myself.
see it happening either.
But nobody wants that. So there are a lot of good things to franchising too. I don't want that to be, missed.
No, I think there are a lot of really good things to it, and I think it is that thing of it brings stability to the scene. Again, it helps with that revenue sharing line of things. You bring in a lot of viewers who are just fans of these organizations. Like, don't get us wrong, there definitely is some awesome stuff to franchising. It's just, I'm with you. I don't think this is the time yet for it. I think it is a conversation to have once we're a bit further in, and again, that parity is up on the top end of things.
Yep, no doubt.
You got anything else you want to add on this one?
Nope.
Cool. Moving on, we are going to go into the league play recap for week 2 of RLCS. We're going to start over in North America. So game number 1 was between Energy and Birds and the Bees. That ended in a 3-0 sweep for Energy. I'm gonna be honest, I had to catch up on watching some of these games. And I watched this one, and that was Energy dominated.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know that anyone would be too surprised about that if we're being honest. Energy being, who they are, and then bringing in Turbo as well. That's just crazy. That just makes one of the best teams even crazier in my mind. So I think they're finding their footing too, really getting used to playing with each other. And I mean, yeah, when you look at the scoreline, Ryan, there's really only one close game there, and they both kept Birds and Bees off the board, but also scored as well. And
yeah,
I'm not surprised seeing that. I'm sure a lot of people, they're not going to be surprised. Energy, they're just killing it early. Rolling so far. They beat everyone that they faced 3-0, and they're going to be the team that everybody's going to be looking at and trying to both emulate and also trying to take down as well. So
they seem like such a hard team to emulate, though, because their speed is ridiculous. Like, just watching the match, like the quick passes between Justin and Turbo Pulsa and Garrett, like, it's just crazy because in one of their games they got 5 goals. Justin had 100% goal participation. Like,
oh my
the
God,
dude is insane.
No doubt. I mean, honestly, you've got NRG as kind of the poster child for a few different things. I mean, you've got, when you look at someone like Justin, just when the guy drives around, he looks unbelievable, and the mechanical ability is just off the charts. And then on top of that, you've got just like brainiacs. If I'm being honest, I mean, Garrett G, Turbo, they're going to be in the right spot, the right place all the time. So, I mean, they're really, there's no surprise they're pushing that. I mean, for Birds and Bees, that's tough because, they're trying to establish themselves. They're trying to make sure that it seems like they're here, or they belong here, I should say. They've had a rough start.
I mean, Birds and the Bees, though, too, like, that was their second game, and their first game was against G2. So, like, they just had a really bad draw on how they're going to start their season. And a lot of us, I mean, a lot of us is what I say, but me in particular, I didn't think that Birds and the Bees were going to be really anything much in this season. I pictured them being a bottom 2 team. I pictured them being down in relegation just because I think when they lost, who did they lose? I'm trying to remember who they lost, but there was a player they lost, and I was like,
that sounds right.
Yeah, I didn't think that it was good for them. You're right. So I really didn't see much.
Mist is very good. Mist is very good.
So I didn't see that ending too well for them. Yeah, it was Mist they lost because he's over.
Yeah, Mist went over. Yep.
He's on 9.
So, I mean, it was interesting because before that happened, the Birds and the Bees were kind of feeling like they were going to challenge with the Peeps as well, kind of, who's the better team there, and it almost feels like the Knights, I should say, have established themselves, especially after that big win against C9.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I still think they can compete with some of those lower, level on the NA. I don't know that I'd call them necessarily for sure bottom 2. Especially with some of the troubles that we've seen from Rogue and even Space Station. I mean, they're all having kind of tough starts. But yeah, it's hard to say that they're anything better than maybe bottom 4, So
I don't really see them riding out of that either, but good job, well done to Energy. Again, that wasn't too surprising of a result, I think, for anybody.
Energy's great. I mean, geez, are you serious? Like,
if anybody picked Birds and the Bees, like, you just love that team. Like, you picked them solely off of faith.
Respect for that. I mean, honestly, respect there. But I mean, it's really not fair that one of the best players in the entire world, a former multiple world champion, can just be like, "Oh, that NA team that was having trouble. They haven't won,
NA team that I denied before.
Let me just step on in here and see what we can do." And I mean, this is all eyes are on that. I mean, they're gonna make it to LAN.
Yeah.
So,
I would honestly be shocked if we didn't see them at LAN. Like, something really happened. We took a turn for the worse in league play at that point.
Yeah, so I would also that would be insane.
Yeah,
I mean, they're one of the most storied teams anyway, and then they had one of the most storied players. So enough said about these guys. They've already been talked about enough. God, they've had their time.
Well, we're gonna talk about them again here in a little bit anyway. Moving on to the next game, though, Ghost took down Rogue in a 3-0 sweep. Ghost already starting off a 2-1 season. They're looking pretty good. They only lost against Cloud9, but they managed to take down both the Knights and Rogue now. So they're off to a way better start than they were last season. But not so much them. I want to focus on Rogue a little bit here. Rogue is just struggling right now. Like, they have just done poorly as a team lately. And it's, I mean, I thought this was going to be the week. I thought last week I was like, okay, first week, maybe it's just a, mistake. Maybe it's just like some nerves and stuff. They came into this one, and they just got dominated. Like, it was a very one-sided matchup for what I saw, and I got let down because I like Rogue a lot.
Yeah, and they've got fans, obviously, especially with that Kronovi, just unbelievable following. He's got almost like cult following for Kronovi at this point. So I know they've got a lot of fans, and it's tough because Kronovi's one of those guys who's one of the last guys I think trying to kind of hang on, who's one of those OG guys, and it's tough to stay with things. Rocket League is that good, especially like we said, when we haven't even seen the best yet. So I'm surprised too against Ghost, I will say, because Ghost did not look good. I'm trying to remember what tournament it was. I was watching Ghost. I was going to look at this here.
Are you talking about the Astronauts tournament? No, they actually looked decent in that, I thought.
It might have been DreamHack Montreal.
That probably is it.
I can't recall, but there was.
I think that was Atomic's first showing on the team too.
Yeah, and they maybe are figuring some things out because Ghosts has always seemed to have trouble with that, figuring out what their style is, what their identity is. They dropped Lethamir, and they're kind of looking to find that new identity with the new roster. But that's a good sign for them. I do think it is, because as you look at some of the lower teams, that's what you start to establish, and you wonder who are, as you look at maybe like 4 through 8.
Yeah.
Who are going to be those teams that shake out there, and that's a big one for Ghost, especially when
is second right now. Like,
yeah, and they beat. I mean, let's not forget beating
the Knights.
The Knights. That's big. The Knights are going to be up there. They're going to push for it. I think really think they're a good team. So yeah, for Ghost, that's a really good sign, and for Rogue, they're definitely trending in the wrong direction, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I hope that Rogue fixes it up going to this next week. They've got 2 games. If they drop against Birds and the Bees, I think that they're almost certainly looking at relegation then, because that's really the only other, aside from them and Space Station Gaming, I don't see other, the other teams just look too good for me to sit here and say you're gonna beat them. Just with the performance the other teams have had lately, I just don't see the path that Rogue is going to find if they lose against Space Station and Birds and the Bees.
Yeah, especially G2 and Birds and Bees. But either way, the Birds and the Bees one is the real one I think to look out for, because that's almost their last chance to establish that they're not that bottom team. Mm-hmm. Birds and the Bees, similar start, not that great. Space Station, though, that is worth noting. They are 0-2, which they also lost against Birds and Bees this week. Not to jump ahead on you, but
no. I mean, go ahead. Let's go into the next one. Why don't you lead us in?
Well, we'll skip, because that big one, we should save that big one, right? For last. We'll save anyway.
That. We'll save those 2 for
last.
That
was just me, just trying to steer the ship here. But
go for it.
No, that result for me is surprising. And I'll just say it right now, since no one ever asked me anyway. I didn't like when Space Station dropped Sathu. Thought that was a bad decision. I didn't understand that decision. Yeah. I'm a fan of teams sticking together and trying to work it out, especially when I know Sathu is a good dude. Yeah. So, I don't feel like he was a cancer on that team or was anything like that. So that, for me, it was a bad decision. And this sort of highlights some of the problems that can be had in my mind. Yeah. I don't think Space Station should have lost against Birds and the Bees. I didn't get to see the series. They did take a game. You maybe can tell me more if you were able to see it, but that's a surprising result. I think
they took one game off Birds and the Bees, and it just they haven't had a great start. They just really didn't look that great. And again, I'm with you though. I think dropping Sathu is definitely the wrong move. When it happened, I was super surprised. That just wasn't something I saw happening, because I felt for your first season coming to RLCS, I felt like they did so well that I was really blown away by that decision. And I mean, it kind of is what it is. It's water under the bridge now. I mean, Sathu, he's dude may come back and take their place at this rate, because dude
will come back at some point, destroying in the rival series.
I can almost see it though in the promo relegation tournament. I imagine they're going to auto-qualify to where they don't even have to do the promo relegation. But if they do, seeing afterthought take down Space Station and force the relegation on them. Like, that's a storyline right there.
Right?
If you're looking for one.
We don't want to miss out on moments like that, you know?
Yeah.
So that's definitely, for sure. I mean, Space Station, they're going to have to figure it out quick. A lot of these teams are going to have to figure it out real fast before they know it. They're in that bottom and starting 0-2. There's absolutely no way that Space Station thought that that was going to be the case. I'm sure the NRG matchup, they knew that was going to be insane for them, obviously. But they're looking at that Birds and the Bees matchup as the way for them to get tied up. No doubt about it. Like, there's absolutely no way they're not coming into that.
You've got to claim it. You got to claim it.
For sure. So they probably even had confidence, kind of feeling like that's going to be a bounce back. I mean, that's a hit on morale.
Yeah.
Going down in that manner. So, yeah, I mean, looking at them next week, they got C9. Ooh. That'll be the one right there. You know what I mean? That'll kind of be that season definer, I think, for them. So
we're gonna keep a close eye, but I think that very first match for Rogue next week, I think the matchup next week for Space Station, it's again gonna be one of those ones where it's like it puts them further down morale wise. But I think when you see the matchup between Space Station and Rogue, if they both continue on their current trajectories, that's going to be a huge game for both of them, and that game takes place week 4.
At that point, it's going to be...
Yeah,
if Rogue may be looking at
next week, that's going to be even rougher for both of them.
Yeah, that could end up being the situation where they're trying to figure out which one has the most confidence as they get down into some of that relegation stuff. So, this is a start for Space Station that I'm sure they didn't at all expect. And I will say props to Birds and the Bees, because don't forget they came into that 0-2. They were making sure that they didn't, they're just still looking for their first win of the season. So that's big. I love all the individual things like that. We're not seeing anything that is necessarily real too predictable early in the season, other than maybe obviously NRG. But yeah, outside of that, it's been a really nice mix of different matchups and different results. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're finally starting to see a little bit of a shakeup where eventually NA, I think, is going to end up like EU, where you're just like, what do you even predict? Let's go down to that last one, and then we'll bounce back up to the other one. So next one, Energy beat out G2 in a clean 3-0 sweep. And I know a lot of people were actually like kind of upset that this wasn't a closer match.
The G2 fans, they're diehard, man. They're there. They're in it for their team.
It was a rough week for G2 and C9 fans. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, I mean, you're facing like the best NA team. I mean, come on, right?
Well, like for the past 4 seasons, this is the team that they lose to. Like, this is always the team they lose to.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, let me look at this because I want to see.
They've got like 6.
Oh my god! I shouldn't even have clicked that. I shouldn't even have clicked. No wonder they were. You said they were down. No wonder the fans were feeling bad, man.
Yeah.
They didn't score a goal in their last 2 games.
Yeah, like
they got completely shut out in 2 games to finish. That's no good. And I remember I may have posted a picture.
I think I saw the picture.
I may have seen one moment that felt a little crazy. Now, I did isolate that moment. That was a little unfair to them. But
it was a good joke, though. I liked it.
That whole play kind of defined that series probably because it was all 3 of them on a breakaway, and the ball was just going the opposite direction. It's like they couldn't catch up. And next thing you know, they're chasing it into the corner as they've missed the wide open net. But yeah, that's a tough one. At least they can say, well, it's NRG. We can hopefully move on, and we'll get some of these other guys who are a little bit easier. But I mean, NRG has been dominant. They've only lost 1 game. How Space Station took that game against them in week 1, I don't know
either, because they've been killing it ever since then. And I mean, but the other thing too for Energy is that you're not going to see the test on them again until week 4, and then it's going to be a big week 4. Is going to be a pretty awesome week because that week you're going to see them take on both the Knights and Cloud9. So the last 2 teams that could possibly, that in a lot of people's minds could possibly stand in the way of them getting an undefeated season, like that's the week we find out what is going to happen and what they're made of.
Yeah, but I will say, knowing everything that's happened, it'll probably just be Ghost taking them down in week 3, and that'll be their first loss, and we'll be expecting these massive, storylines, and then it'll be completely switched up by the time that we get there. But no doubt, if they do come in undefeated, you're right. I mean, if they manage to win those, I mean,
Rogue's the last team that stands in their way, and just their performance tells us everything we need to know in that regard.
And NRG's been nuts in the regular season always. They've always been. I mean, I think they when they go on.
There was one season they didn't get. There's one season they weren't the North American champions, and it was the one season that Cloud9 managed to take it.
Gotcha. But either way, I mean, just so consistent in the regular season, almost like a guarantee for LAN at this point. That those will be insane matchups. There's no doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think some of those teams are probably looking at that and thinking we got to get our stuff together before we get into round 4. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Especially C9. Ooh, is that the way? Is that our segue into?
Go for it, man.
C9 because and now I'm not surprised. I won't lie. I'm not surprised.
Really?
C9 are classic underachievers when they feel like maybe. Not as much as on the line. I mean, and who knows? They could be treating the regular season this way too. I don't know. They're pretty confident. But the Knights are for real. I mean, they're not going to go away. They're that good. What they did at DreamHack, kind of kick off everything, get more eyes on them, get themselves in the spotlight there. I mean,
well, and like
play is it matches and can rival the top teams. I mean, that's why we saw their ability to take down C9, and C9. No one would argue that C9 is not one of the best teams.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, for sure. And like my kind of question going into this week was because of what we kind of saw pros saying after DreamHack. They kind of were acting like, oh, this isn't a play style that is going to be able to win them a majority of things. Like, it's something that we're going to pick up on and, like, be able to deal with. Like, it's just we weren't prepared for it. And so, like, yeah, it's not going to happen again. And, like, you saw it, like, from Scrub and other people like that. And so it was, like, interesting because I kind of went into this thinking, like, okay, let's see how true that actually is. Like, have the Knights shown their hand too much to where now they can't, pull off some upsets in the regular season. And like this week, I think if you aren't on the Knights train at this point, like you're missing out because these guys, that reverse sweep on C9 is just ridiculous. But also, like you were saying, C9 have notoriously done bad in league play. They're just not an online team. They are always land-based in when they find success.
Yeah, we'll have to see, as we go. I mean, I think if you made a comment about styles and stuff and maybe as the pros and what they think. I mean, honestly, I kind of feel like the game always has the speed of the game always has a chance to kind of overlap if it makes sense and go a little bit slower. Next thing you know, you're going so fast that someone can play slower and that actually can help. And I almost feel like the top of the scene was getting to that point where they're looking for passes. They're looking for each other. They're trying to find each other. And the difference in the Knights play was not that they weren't looking for each other, but they were still trying to play, in my mind, as fast as they possibly could, at least the recent games that I've seen from them. And they're forcing the opponents to figure out how to respond. The very fact that people are saying, oh, we'll find a way to figure out their style. What's that telling us?
Yeah.
That's telling us that they're thinking they have to find a way to figure out their style. So I mean, that's a good thing. They're pushing these top teams, clearly still doing it. That result shows us that. And it's not just speed. The vision, if you go and watch the touches that they make at high speed, they are very thought out. Yeah. And they do it in a split-second instant to where...
they're like extremely fast.
It's so hard to defend because someone's up at the ball, and next thing you know, they're not only hitting the ball, but they're hitting it exactly where they need to, and they're knowing exactly where their teammates are, and they're never double committing. I mean, they're the definition of team as well. I mean, I would like to say for the Vitality fans of the world, if Vitality could play as a team like the Knights do, they'd never lose a game because Vitality is that good, right? Those players are that good, but unfortunately, until they figure out how to work together, none of that matters. And the Knights know how to work together. They're brilliant at it.
No, they definitely are. And I mean, they're reminiscent to me of Space Station last season, and being that team that we're looking at as like the one to challenge the big three. And, you know, they took down the first one, so they're looking to try and take down another. But granted, we also saw Space Station take down Cloud9 last season. So Cloud9 just seems like the easiest one to topple, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I look more at they're just getting the wins they need rather than...
And that's a crucial win for them.
Especially when they did drop against Ghosts. They're trying to make sure they establish themselves. They come out early last week and lose against Ghosts. That maybe opens up some question marks. The win against Rogue, not as impressive. The win against C9 then puts them right back on the map, make sure that people understand. And I do think that the three players on the Knights, as long as they stick with it, they will continue to find success. And that's a wake-up call for C9 too, because if they are at all kind of playing it all nonchalantly, I mean, they're 1-1 right now. It's still very early, but they don't want to see that record tip towards the losing side. They got to start getting some wins.
Yeah, and I mean, I kept saying it. I felt like this was going to be I felt like it was going to be this season or next season that we're going to see the big three finally receive a challenge. And I'm hoping that, I mean, Riddle's already had some shots fired, calling out G2 for next week. So we're going to have to, that's one I'm excited to watch and see how that pans out. Because, I mean, if they take down G2, oh man, like, you can't sleep on them then. You can't sleep on the Peeps, but now Knights, it doesn't work as well.
No, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if the Knights have had. I won't spend time looking here, but have they beat G2? That seems like something that has possibly potentially even happened. You never even know. So I mean,
they beat G2 at DreamHack.
That's what I'm wondering. That's what I was kind of didn't want to.
That's who they won. That's who they beat in the grand finals.
Yeah. See, I mean, this has got some real implications then, and we shouldn't sleep on them right now anyway, right? We already know they can beat G2, so G2 better be ready to play, especially after that absolute shellacking against NRG.
Oh yeah.
Week 3. I mean, I know you mentioned week 4. Week 3 is going to really give us an indication, though, going into those final weeks, where we're at. We're going to see a lot of change in the standings, and that's where teams are really going to know how they're feeling, and that's when the pressure is really going to be on.
So I'm excited for it, but now we are going to fly across the pond over to EU, and we're going to take a look at their recap real quick. Mouse Sports took down FC Barcelona in Game 1, 3-2. Mouse, I'm glad they made a bounce back because they just got demolished by Alpha last week. I can't even say TSM because it was like all Alpha.
Hey, Alpha's a great player, so I mean that's no surprise. But I don't get to catch the EU side as often, but I was
during
looking
our commentary almost. So
yeah, I was looking up and down at the lineups, and this is going to be an insane. Yeah, I mean. The lineups are nuts in EU.
Oh yeah.
I don't focus as much, but I'm not surprised because that's how Rocket League is getting. We're getting to some of that real insane talent up at the very top. But I mean, EU is just stacked.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing too. Is like I'm excited because I feel like next season is where you're gonna start seeing NA make the shift to be like EU, where it's just like the top end is so stacked that it's like who's gonna even win.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, like we talked about the matchup that you were saying, FC Barcelona, these are players played together a lot, been around the scene a lot, trying to get themselves back up near the top. Devo, Bluey, Ronicky, I mean, these are all they've all got fans. They're all household names at this point. That's insane. I gotta start watching EU more too because I'm sure it's nuts. I love the style of the EU teams too. Sometimes it feels like they play just a little bit different than than NA. So
I mean, I'm with you though. I always sit here and say I'm like I need to study EU more because I never feel like I can give enough context on them.
I got a job, man. I got a wife.
I mean, we focus so much, like you and me. I mean, like we do rival series casting for North America, so it's like a lot of our focus is on North America anyway. So it's like it makes it a little harder to try, especially like I'm impressed how Gibbs and all of them handle it because like trying to bounce between the two areas like feels so difficult because like you're just naturally gonna want to look at one over the other.
Yeah, no doubt. But I mean, as we look, I'm not surprised. I mean, I love Cuxer. I've been a fan of Cuxer for a long time. I think Cuxer will be one of those players who's just cemented.
Whenever we have a Rocket League Hall of Fame,
players.
They're going to join it.
Without a doubt. I mean, he's done some amazing things already, and his ability to stay in the scene. I look at Krenovia on the other side as a kind of a similar player in that regard, but I actually think Cuxer has done a little bit more. Obviously, he plays a little bit bigger on that stage. So I hope that Mouse Sports can actually make it to LAN, because I love seeing LAN Cuxer. It's just great.
It's great. Yeah.
Honestly, it is. So and Speed, the addition, those two playing together, Speed's game is for real. Yeah. So I may not be able to see.
He definitely is right when he says he is Speed.
No doubt. So like I don't necessarily see these players play together as often lately, but the players on the team and they're amazing. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a big win. That's a big win for Mouse, like you were saying, to get their first win of the season after dropping that previous one. I didn't get to see the matchup against TSM either, but no, it's always bad one player wrecks you. Like
unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch much else of the EU side of things, but that matchup last week between Mouse Sports and TSM, Remco looked bad, and Alpha he pulled off the carry in huge fashion as they got that reverse sweep. But enough of that. We're going to move on to the next one. Speaking of TSM, they lost 1-3 against Reciprocity. Personally, I'm not surprised by this. I think Reciprocity have done a really good job. This is one of those teams that like they've been at a bunch of LANs now. They have stuck together for a long time. In EU, that's a rare sight at this point. And so, I mean, they're one that I think if you saw it going in favor of TSM, you are banking on that alpha carry again, which isn't going to work against this team.
Yeah, I love the fact that
Reciprocity.
Can they go back to one of their previous names?
Let's just go back to PSG.
Better. Yeah, that was much easier to put together for me. But I'm not surprised. I absolutely do love when players stick together. I think that's one of the best ways to find success and to really gel, because Rocket League is more than just about, what's happening on the field and the decisions. I mean, I don't know. You play enough games with two other guys and you understand where they're going to be. You understand everything really about their play style. Yeah. And you just, you know it works. So why really mess with something that works? And that's Farah, Chaussette, and Fruity are fantastic. I've seen them at a couple of LANs, and especially Chaussette. I mean, he's one of those game-breaking players who can make things happen. So I liked TSM. I wish TSM had not dropped iIgnite. I really do use that as my moment to make a comment on that. I like iIgnite a lot. I know you mentioned Alpha did really well in that first week, and I'm not saying he's not great, but something just felt good about what those guys were doing too.
Well,
I kind of wish they would have stuck together.
Yeah, and that was the thing too. Is like I kind of wish that Alpha had stuck with that FC Barcelona, because like I felt like that was a good team too. And I mean, it's always interesting when you see these team shakeups, because some of them, as a viewer and as a commentator and stuff, you just kind of sit here and you're like, what? And so it's just one of those things that like sometimes it just leaves you scratching your head, wondering why they went the way they did.
They're trying to find that right mix. I get it there too. These players show that they're good enough to continue to make it with different teams.
Yeah,
it's almost a reason to stick together in my mind. Like, you're good enough to make it here. So maybe you're looking for that next little bit. But who knows? Maybe you just find that perfect mix and you just take off from there. So can't blame them for wanting to switch it around. And the players make it anyway, back to at least this far. I mean, for them, it's almost the same thing at that point. So why not switch it up? But
no, I'm with you on it. We're going to hop on down to the next one, though, and Renault Vitality managed to take down Veloce 3-1. So Renault Vitality managed to take down Veloce after their 2 wins that put them at the top of the leaderboard last week. I don't think we're surprised that Renault Vitality took it. I'm still surprised that Veloce took their last 2 games.
Vitality is a little enigmatic. I think Vitality has the ability to become a dynasty and win multiple championships in a row. They just have to make sure that they find that style and establish that style as a group. Make sure that it's weird to see world-class players sometimes step on each other's toes. Yeah. You don't see that. They're so good. They've got multiple game-breaking players. They're literally a team of game-breaking players. So,
they're all leaders in the game in their own right.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And they all come from a pretty good individual 1s and 2s background too. So they just understand how to control the flow of the game. And the thing is, they just got to find that 3s style. But honestly, I can't say anything. They just won. They're the reigning world championship. Yeah. Or the world champion, I should say. So what can you say about Vitality? They're so good that they can win even when they're not necessarily playing as good as they could be. That's scary.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. Next week, they've got Mouse Sports and FC Barcelona. But really, I'm at this point, again, like that week 4 just feels like it's the dynamite week for both regions. But that's the week that they're going to take on Reciprocity. And, to be honest, Reciprocity I could see dropping against Dignitas, and I could see Renault Vitality possibly dropping one of their games next week between Mouse Sports or FC Barcelona. But I think there's a really strong chance that both teams can go into week 4 undefeated, and that's where you see them kind of fight for who's going to take on the undefeated season possibly.
I agree. Yeah, that's going to be an epic matchup, and I do believe the potential, like you're saying, is there to do that. You've got some pedigree on those teams at this point where they've certainly established themselves and they've shown that they can play under pressure. They can make their way to LAN. They're almost expecting LAN, I would imagine, for these types of teams, for those 2. So, that'd be crazy. As much as I said again that I love Vitality, but I would actually be rooting for Reciprocity in that scenario.
I'm not sure.
I just love those guys. They just seem like such Fruity and Chassette. Yeah. First off, it's hilarious when they stand next to each other. So,
it is.
That alone, they walk out together, and it's almost like a dad playing with his son or something. It looks like the first father-son pairing, but those 2 just they
take your son to work day.
Guys, So I'm a fan of them too for that reason. I'd be rooting for them, and that would be insane if they could take down Vitality. Oh my God, can you imagine how good they'd be feeling about that?
Oh man, they would probably clean sweep Mouse Sports in their final week if they did it.
You got to think they'd be riding high, but we'll see. There's still a lot of time, a lot of games and stuff. So
our next matchup is between Dignitas and Complexity. Complexity dropped their 3rd game now into the 3-2 loss against Dignitas. And Complexity is one I kind of want to talk about a little bit because they looked really good in RLCS, and then they did really well in the promotion tournament. The fact that they actually made it and Veloce didn't, it's just surprising to see that this team's not gelling very well. And you have to wonder how much of that has to do with some of their off-season drama they had with Flakes and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think there are some of the players where as you look at honestly across all of the rosters, you kind of feel like they're one of the weaker rosters in general. Yeah. Greasy's kind of trying to hang on. It feels like he's maybe losing a little bit. For whatever reason, he's gone in my mind from being one of those top guys to feels like maybe he's still fantastic, but just maybe not right as high as he used to be. I'm not sold on Complexity, and honestly, I'm not surprised at that. I think Dignitas is actually
they're looking strong with Astral. Astral definitely has elevated that team from where they were last season to this season. It's such a different team, And, like, I think that he was definitely that player that they needed.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing where I haven't watched them necessarily play as much, but you think about the three players, you think about their past history, you think about some of the things that you've seen them do in the past, and yeah, I think that those three actually probably have a real solid chance of establishing themselves if they can just stick with it. So I like Dignitas as they move forward, and we'll just have to see. The one thing that is notable about those games, even though it went to 5, the 2 wins for Complexity are 1-0 victories. So that's kind of telling, anyway. I think, in that. Yeah, like if those games go the opposite direction, we're not even maybe talking about them getting a win at all. So I think that 2-3, the 5 games is a little bit maybe deceiving there. You kind of look into it and you realize they were hanging on probably that entire series.
Well, and it's one of those things that, like, next week, like, they have to win pretty much. Otherwise, they're pretty much a lock for bottom 2. So it's going to be really scary for those guys. They're going to have to buckle up and just put it all in pretty much, because that's just it's too close for comfort.
And again, if you look at week 4, like, everybody needs to get through week 3 and then really buckle up for week 4, because then Complexity's got 2 games, 2 matches, I should say, in that week. So I mean, that'll be it for them if they can't get it there. So that will literally define their season. So these upcoming ones, starting without that win, like every other team has been competitive, but you start 0-3, you look at some of the results.
Yeah.
Feels like they're really sort of establishing themselves as the bottom feeders there. So
we'll keep an eye on them for next week. I mean, fingers crossed. I mean, if they take a win, then it keeps EU competitive, at least, I mean, throughout the standings almost. But moving down to that final game for EU this weekend, TSM lost 0-3 against FC Barcelona. If you're Alpha, I mean, this might be the point where you're kind of like, did I make the right choice?
Yeah, well, I mean, where was he? Because did you say
Alpha came from FC Barcelona?
Oh, well, I mean, I like that. I mean, anyway, I like the
storyline to
it. The Barcelona guys sticking it to him. They didn't happen to swap players, did they? That would be
they picked up Ronicky from Triple Trouble.
Gotcha.
The disassembled Triple Trouble team.
These off-season swaps are just almost impossible to keep track of.
Yeah.
Start to do research into things. You're like,
the only reason I know is because we talk about it on the show every week during the off-season. Like, we have a whole segment where it's just roster shuffle stuff.
Nice. Man, I need to do the fantasy more too, the fantasy Rocket League, so that I can pick up some guys there and figure that out. But TSM, not going to rag on them too much, but I wasn't expecting too much when they made that swap. So
yeah, but we're gonna.
Why do players do it? That's what I gotta say. Why do players do it? Just stick with your team, man.
No, I'm all about that. I like the idea of grinding it out with them, growing with them as a team. Like I love that so much, and it's like that's one of the reasons I think that I'm such a fan of Kronovi is because he. Even with how many losses he's taken in his career, he's always been of the mindset of work on it as a team. And, I mean, that's part of what endears me to him, at least, is just that mentality. Because I sympathize with it so much.
And then he joined and replaced the guy who got removed from his team.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's okay, though. That's okay. Yeah. We won't fault you, Kronovi. He also had a hard break with his team, I think. That was probably a tough breakup as well. So.
Yeah.
Can't fault him too much.
You got anything else you want to add here to the end of the league play segment?
Nope. Other than I solemnly promise to watch more EU because I'm interested. I was looking at the rosters. I'm like, why am I not watching this? So
I'm going to hold you to that, man.
Being dumb. I've been being dumb.
But that concludes the news. So we're going to jump. We're going to go through this one pretty quickly. Nothing too major here. We're going to go into the roster shuffle. So first up, this one, Rogue, again, they're just taking hits, left and right. So first, they lost Sizz to NRG. So NRG now has Sizz as their coach, which just reading the comments on that post on Reddit had me rolling with laughter because imagining Sizz coaching those three guys is hilarious to me.
Yeah, it feels like they almost did it for the memes. It almost feels like they did it like this seems like a publicity stunt.
That was one of the comments was that like I feel like NRG is gonna win the world championship off meme power alone.
I mean, how could they not? And I do. If you think about like, I don't know if they have a house. Like if those guys like they probably
Turbo
do, right?
and Turbo and Garrett do.
Oh my God! Throw Sizz in there and then
yeah,
just
like that
sounds.
I want vlogs of that house if he moves in.
Dude, just roll the camera, like put it on 24/7 feed, and you got yourself a successful show. I mean, yeah, I just think about Sizz and Turbo. They're gonna get into trouble. Someone needs to keep an eye on those guys. I don't know. Like Rogue's the coach. Do they have a manager? I hope. Or not Rogue, but I'm sorry. Sizz is the coach, but I hope they have their manager over on NRG, right?
No clue
all
who
that
it is.
stuff, under wraps, because otherwise that's gonna be rough. I was thinking of Rogue losing their manager. That's kind of a tough. Rogue is really hurting, like you said, right now.
And like it kind of makes you wonder what's going on with the team, because that was the other bit here is Wesker, who was their manager. He has now officially left Rogue as well. So now Rogue are 0-2 for the season. They're -5 in the standings. And no, they're -6. They haven't won a single game. And they just lost both their they didn't just lose Sizz. He wasn't with them from the start of the season. They confirmed. But they also just lost him. So it's just like hits left and right, man. Like I feel for this team right now. It sucks.
Yeah, I think Wesker had their Netflix password too. He was sharing it with everyone. So he took that as well. So, man, it's been really rough in the Rogue house. But
yeah,
no,
I hope that they kind of turn it around this season. But I mean, I feel for them. That sucks.
They're good players, though. Yeah. They're gonna find a way to bond together, I'm sure, and still find that fight, especially with Krinovi and at the helm there. You said that guy doesn't give up. So
no, he doesn't. So I'm looking to see him. I'm looking at him to turn things around for them here. But the next bit of news, these two, not quite as important. These are just team pickups. So RCD Espanyol has picked up Pepitos Canyons from the EU RLRS, and Charlotte Phoenix have picked up the former Splice roster, a.k.a. Paradox, over on the North American Rival Series. So I'm happy. More organizations trying to get in on it, even at the Rival Series level. I like that. That makes me happy.
No doubt. I like the soccer clubs, too. Every time a soccer club comes...
That makes me so excited to see them.
I just like it. I don't even know. I don't know why I didn't even watch soccer, but...
well, it's like the fact that they acknowledge this game, too. Like, they're not like, we're just going to have a FIFA team. They're like, let's get a Rocket League team. I'm like, yes.
That is cool. I mean, it doesn't feel like I'm playing soccer. It seems like when I'm playing Rocket League, these guys probably watch, and they're like, we need to pick up this team, and then we're going to immediately tell them how to play soccer.
Yeah.
And that is probably why they're all...
We have to wonder if they actually do, like, soccer coaching with them or something.
Dude, how could they not? You know? Right? The players, they probably get to talk to the pro players and, like, get pointers and stuff from them. I bet that's fantastic.
I'm curious how they're, like, what their behind-the-scenes stuff is like. It seems really cool.
Super cool, probably, and way better than my life. But
I think all their lives are better than ours.
I'm actually working on a few soccer club sponsorships myself. So
nice,
just for me. So they're looking to sponsor my commentating, which is pretty nice. So
one of the owners from an MLS team comes and picks you up.
Yeah, it was actually they sent their representative David Beckham.
Oh yeah,
to my house. So I said, "Get out of here! I don't watch soccer. I don't know who you are." But they respected that.
But
I don't know who's Charlotte Esports. I mean,
Charlotte Phoenix are they're
from
huge,
Charlotte, right?
They're not a huge organization. They're kind of small actually. Like I think the organization that runs them, like I think their Twitter following was something like only 1,000 or so people. Like they're about probably on par with RBG in terms of like how well known they are.
Man, I got to tweet more at them. They show their tweets on the main page of their site.
Yeah.
Our friend Vaudible's got 2 of them on here. What the heck, man?
We got to get some more notoriety, man.
God dang it. They retweeted and now he's on here and he's getting all the love. Oh my,
You know, that's what we get for having Vaudable along.
Freaking guy. He's a smart cookie, but
Yeah.
I'm interested. It's funny that for me, not funny, but former Splice, like Karma always finds an org. There's always someone who's looking to, and I really like Karma, and I really hope at some point she can kind of take that next step, even though she's always been right there near the top.
Yeah.
I like that though. There's, even if this org's a little bit of a smaller one, it's good to see orgs want to take that leap and keep putting themselves out there for teams. So hopefully this can work out good. Maybe we can see this team, kill it in rival series. Karma can get back to RLCS and maybe, I bet that's kind of what they're banking on. You kind of wonder if they're really hoping they can get to RLCS and that can help them get their name out there.
Yeah.
But I mean,
there's always something behind it, of course, but
hey,
I mean,
I kind of like the thought of, I mean, if they're willing to go out on a limb and take that chance, I think that's cool. So
no, I'm down for it too. But that is going to conclude the roster shuffle. So, do you have any?
I feel like I should do something there. I'll make sure if I'm ever on again, I'll try and.
That's just like something I started from like the first couple episodes, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to do it now. You got any closing comments before we go into our finish for the show? We had a lot of good discussion, man.
If anyone from Psionics is watching, this is going to be a massive year, so let's make sure and do it. Let's get all our ducks in a row and make sure that this game really takes off, because we are about ready to blast off. Oh, and also look for me, because I'm gonna get really good this year too, and finally take that next step. You probably see me in a lot of tournaments.
Yeah,
and that's gonna be.
You should come play in our Monday ones.
I definitely want to, but the problem is, when it's a threes game, you have to have two friends.
I'm sure Dazrin or someone would join you.
So, but I want them to be good at Rocket League too.
Okay, that's fair. All right, man. I appreciate you joining me. It was a lot of great discussion with you. And then you guys, viewers, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Once again, be sure to follow us here on Twitch so you can stay up to date with us when we go live each week. We'll be uploading this episode later on YouTube and podcast services, so be on the lookout for that if you missed today's episode. And then real quickly, man, give us your plugs. Where can people find you and get all the good scoops and, memes about G2 from you?
Well, I'm not too big of a memer, but when I do meme, they're
gold nuggets when you get them.
So, yeah, Rocket Sammael would be my Twitter. It's going to be my main spot to find me. Hopefully, I'll be streaming at some point on Twitch with that same handle. Right now, just out there on Twitter. Yeah, little musings about the game and everything else like that. But other than that, find us on Rival, right, Ryan? We're going to be keep on doing this Rival series stuff and this B stream that we've been doing, and it's been a great time.
No, it's been a great time. It's been such an honor to be a part of it.
They can't stop me because I decide who goes on. So I have all of the cards.
You're just always going to put yourself on.
I might. I mean, no one's complained to me yet, and honestly,
no one's called out the bias.
Sure if it would matter. I really don't know if I would even take them into account. So watch me every single week for right now on Rival.
Hunted, we're looking at you. I know the beat you guys have.
Nope, he's taking your spot, actually. Yeah. He decided to sponsor his spot, and this is very similar to the franchising we talked about earlier.
Oh, he's franchising his spot in that.
Put that out there too. We are starting that for our casters as well, so look for that, guys.
All right, let me know what the buy-in is, and I'll get to you on that. We'll have a little conversation at the show about that.
Nice. You better be ready to bring it. I got a lot of good offers out there.
You can follow me at PWR_Ryan. You can follow us, both of our Twitter handles right there under our beautiful faces. And you can also follow us at PWR_Leagues over on Twitter. And again, you can also catch both of us on the Rival Series B stream that broadcasts every Friday and every Sunday for North America. That's what we're both commentating for, because as you've seen, we don't know enough about EU.
Hey, we got great EU casters. That's the line.
They're better. They're good. Yeah, they're
very good too. We're gonna let them.
You can also catch the EU side of Rival Series on Fridays and Saturdays. But guys, this has been Around the Scene presented to you by Playing with the Rockets. I'm Ryan, that's Sammael, and it has been our pleasure to have you with us. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Peace out.